मूल्य समझो, कहीं ऐसा वक्त ना आए इसे पाने के लिए तरसो। शान है हमारी ये संस्कृति, उस पर नाज करो, बिना समय बर्बाद किए इसे संभालने का प्रयास करो। पुरानी संस्कृति से जो मिला उसे दिल से कबूल कर लो, बदले में उसे सुरक्षित रखने का एक वादा कर लो। किसने क्या किया, क्या ना किया, इस असमंजस में ना पड़ो। हमने क्या किया, क्या ना किया, उस पर गौर करो। अपने हाथों से इसे संवारने का फिर से एक वादा करो। Let me take the opportunity to welcome our esteemed guest speakers for today's webinar, Complex Past and Diverse Future. Mr. Jeetu Mishra, co-founder of Sarna Educational and Cultural Services. He is an archaeologist by training from Pune's Deccan College. Mr. Jeetu has been a researcher, a traveler, writer, and a travel storyteller. He is also a visual narrator of heritage, tangible and intangible. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Richa Dalwani, founder of the Heritage Art. She is an independent journalist and blogger. The Heritage Art works with the vision of Ghar Ghar Heritage and a mission to promote, preserve, and popularize Indian heritage, arts, and culture. They empower local artisans and communities by using innovative designs and marrying it with local crafts. Welcome, ma'am. Next, we have Ms. Rosalind Dash. She is a partner of Sarna Educational and Cultural Services, LLP. Ma'am, we are pleased to have you in today's webinar. So before we start our webinar, I would like to congratulate Jeetu sir and Rosalind ma'am for their book Odisha, A Timeless Romance, which will be released on 18th April, that is World Heritage Day. Congratulations, sir and ma'am.
The book title is actually Bhubaneswar Eastern Abode,
Okay.
which is Lord Shiva's Eastern Abode. That book is going to be released from published from Toronto, Canada. It's going to be released on 18th April.
Okay, sir.
That is day after tomorrow in the evening.
Congratulations, sir, for that. No?
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Jeetu sir, I would like to ask first question from you. Why heritage is relevant in the 21st century?
Okay. So heritage, see 10 years back or 15 years back, maybe heritage was given least priority in India because we were just evolving as a middle class nation. And for us, it was more important to go for jobs or professions, occupation related to technology. And we were going to compete, we were competing with the rest of the world for that. And there was huge unemployment. So for those things, to meet those challenges, I think heritage was not given much priorities. But as now we have become, India has become a global superpower. In last few years, India has evolved as a global superpower. And many of the countries are looking at India, as a source of inspiration, as a source of leadership. So in this context, I think heritage plays a very important role because when we think about India as a nation, so it is not it is an idea actually. India is an idea, and the origin of the idea, the genesis of the present day ideas of India go back to the time of industrial civilization, or even prior to that. So unlikely other countries, many of the other countries where the traditions have wiped out, many of the past traditions have become extinct, whereas in India it has still retained. India has still retained many of its old world culture, heritage. And it's important because when we have to stand today in the world with dignity as Indians, or any community, whether it is Gujarati or Bengali or Odia or Tamil or whichever community, so we have to stand up with dignity, and it is the roots that give us the strength, the power for which we are known for. So India, for example, like today is known for many of the powerful ideas which have evolved in the past. For example, non-violence, which was first, I think, attempted by Lord Mahabir and then Gautama Buddha, and then after the Kalinga War, it was Emperor Ashoka who used non-violence as a tool for winning the people's heart. Not only in India but across the world, wherever he sent missionaries all over the world, mainly through the approach through using the tools non-violence, which was also one of the principles of Lord Buddha's Dhamma. And after 2000 years, more than 2000 years, 2200 years, when Gandhiji came into the picture, and he used the same non-violence for achieving the independence of India. So that was used as a tool. And of course, we succeeded, Gandhiji succeeded. And based on Gandhiji's approach, many other countries, like, many other personalities, historical personalities of the 21st century, world leaders, like Martin Luther King Jr., King Martin Luther Jr., and also the South African, what was his name? Nelson Mandela, and many of them, they also have used the same non-violence tool. So
Right.
India is this is how we are connected. So today, I'll just give you an example. There is a place called Khichon in Rajasthan, which is in Jodhpur district. And this place where I had gone to document, because there's a kind of migratory bird called demoiselle crane. They come in thousands of numbers to this desert kingdom, and during the winter season, and their numbers were actually dwindling because of a lot of reasons in 10-15 years back or 20 years back. And it's because there was, many of them were dying because of electrocutions, and then there was less number of water bodies, so they did not have enough habitat, so their numbers were dwindling. So the Jain community, which again which believe in the concept of non-violence, they came forward, and it was a voluntary act, community act. They all came together, and they created a space where they could feed thousands of birds every day in the morning. And you see a spectacle drama of human animal relationship interactions in the early morning if you go there. And again, the population of the migratory birds have increased, and they are safe. And you know and it is all, every day hundreds of tons of not tons, quintals of grains are actually offered to these birds, so that they could live without having any issue and without having any problem of food. So this is again an act, and this actually the act which the Jain community show of the village, the origin goes back to 2,500 years. And this is what I think, when we learn about Jainism in the class, we just learn about, the principle of Mahabir, what he had told about, the principle of Jainism. But how it is still relevant in the 21st century, that we see in the act of, gifting, or art of kindness, or art of compassion, non-violence, when in the context of Khichon, where the migratory birds are offered. So this is how I feel that, how heritage has a deep connection in today's world. So likewise, you have number of such examples, whether it is old water bodies, whoever have constructed, whether it is Hindus or Muslims or Jains, whoever have constructed, they are also found today relevant. And I'll give you an example again of Burhanpur city, a city in the Khandes region of Madhya Pradesh, which is on the border of Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, which was also considered as the military capital of the Mughals. They had built a 7-kilometer long subterranean water facilities, which was again a gift of the Iranian technology. And once the Mughals, their rule declined, and then we had started, they had got the pipe supply, and people had forgotten. But again, when the Khandes region was going through a steep drought conditions, so the government, the commission, the local civic society, the civic government of the local body, they realized that if they could revive the water, created 400 years back, the water specific to 400 years back, And believe me, today it is supporting 25% of Burhanpur population, which is about 1,50,000 to 1 lakh. So this is how I think history, past, heritage is connected today. And it gives us strength in the world to stand up as community, as well as also the ideas which had evolved, and they have got the practical applications too. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Truly agree, sir. The concept of non-violence is not, it is not a new concept. It is moving from generation to generation. I truly agree, sir. Now, Richa ma'am, sometimes I believe that students do not take much interest in heritage education. My question to you is, how can we simplify heritage education for our children?
Okay, thank you. That's really an interesting and much needed question that you've asked me. So I think, before coming to the answer, I would just share my personal experience with regards to heritage. So I studied in Xavier's, but there was no subject called heritage. It took years to find my own city. The heritage of Ahmedabad, to know about the city, to understand what exactly it is. I took long years, like you could say 25 years to come to that point. So, heritage is very complex for us because we are not taught in schools the way it should be. So it's fully limited, or it's not for all basically. So that's why I think that students are even today not really much into heritage, because heritage for me is a lifestyle. Still, all of us do not adopt it as a lifestyle. I don't think like we could pass on the kind of passion and the kind of interest that the subject needs. Yeah, that is one thing. Now coming to the question, how to simplify that. So from whatever experience I've had of heritage, I think I would like to distribute the entire process of educating children for heritage in 3 I's. The first I being introducing heritage. So it's very important for us to understand as educators and as people who want to spread knowledge about heritage, so introducing kids at the right time. So just like you introduce fruits to kids, just like you introduce new languages to kids, so at the same time, the curriculum should introduce heritage as a very specific and as a very prominent subject for them, so that they do not miss out on what heritage exactly. So this is coming from my experience of people from my generation who are highly educated, but still they do not know the types of heritage, what exactly is heritage. This is general perception that it's a monument, it is heritage. But heritage is beyond that and a lot beyond that. In fact, that message needs to be passed on in the right way, and I think schools would play a very important role in that. Now, this is introduction of heritage, and it also has to be introduced in phases. Like I remember studying Battle of Plassey and other, World War I, World War II. I still do not remember anything about it. So if I want to remember the history, I want to go back to my history book. So I think if we really want our kids to know about heritage, it should start with the surroundings. So if your kids are staying in Mustardwood, they should, first explore the areas nearby. Then it should be introduced in phase-wise. Once they are through with their surroundings, they could probably move out to the city, and then we could move out to heritage of the nation and heritage and history of the world. So I think it should be introduced to kids in a phased manner, and that is pretty much possible if all of us, come together for that. The second I is involvement. So involving kids through different activities, like taking them on heritage tours, heritage walks, taking them on a museum visit, once they're into their drawing, painting classes, probably take the inspiration from what they have seen, or just do it live at some heritage monument or heritage spot, maybe in the old city. So, imagine kids going to the old city, talking to 80 or 90 grannies and grandpas, knowing their story, understanding what even there are, their heritage and the family tradition alive. So if we give our kids alternative and interactive education around heritage, I think that's going to create a huge difference. And who would not love to, hear first-hand stories from different people? And that will not only boost heritage education, but that will somehow boost kids to understand the values of, social values, the values of different crafts, the values of being together in a group and learning something new. It somehow develops their cognitive skills and their problem solving skills, and it helps them be very smart and heritage friendly. So that is the second thing. And the third thing is inspiring them to do something for it. Now I understand not every kid would be interested in heritage, pursuing heritage as a career, but if kids really have interest and a very specific passion for heritage, I think they should be awarded with certificates. They should be helped to hold their voices around heritage, so that the problems that we are facing right now, that there are limited people who know about heritage and there's only one section that is talking about it. So in future we solve that problem if we support their careers in heritage, and if we help them, shape their ideas around heritage, if we promote them as young change makers or heritage ambassadors. So yeah, for me, these are the 3 steps that I would like to see in education system, and I feel that this can simplify for kids to understand heritage in totality, not just in terms of this.
Yeah. Right, ma'am. I think these methods will definitely help our students to go ahead in heritage education. But nowadays in pandemic situation, like going to a heritage monument is not possible. So I think that the school can arrange virtual tours. Virtual tours are also equally good for the students to understand our heritage.
Yeah, definitely. Even for that matter, Google also, where you can, digitally go through museums around the world. So that's really a good initiative.
Yes. Rosalind ma'am, please share your views about the importance of heritage and the need to preserve them and their relevance in the current and future times.
All right. Good evening, Namaste. My voice is audible?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. So before we begin, there's a very famous saying which says, Dharmo rakshite rakshitaha. That is, if we protect our dharma, the dharma protects us.
Rightly said.
Yes, and it is the same thing when we replicate that to our heritage. If we try to preserve the heritage preserves our identity, isn't it? So heritage, when we say, it is something that has been probably passed on, be it tangible or a non-tangible. So if it's a heritage, it is something that has been passed on, the values, the cultures, the practices that have been passed on from generations to generations, and it is up to us to protect them and preserve them and probably have an identity with them. So before I actually speak on the ideas that you mentioned, I would quote a very simple example during one of our recent visits to Dhauli Stupa. I guess everybody knows about Dhauli Giri. Dhauli Stupa, the white pagoda, the peace pagoda, where, on the banks of which the Battle of Kalinga was fought. So we were doing a video on Ashoka and Kalinga War. And there was a group of cyclists who had been in that, it's an uphill zone. So they were cycling. And we wanted to capture a bite of those cyclists. And we wanted to know about their understanding about the place, the monument. Interestingly, they had no idea. So when we speak about something like Battle of Kalinga, which was fought in 261 BC, which is one of the most prominent wars that everybody studies, but these group of youngsters had no idea. Even they flocked to that place almost every day. So look at the kind of connection we have with the culture and the heritage of our country. So that was very astounding. So, I mean, be it Odisha or be it Ahmedabad, I think Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and they being one of the first cities to be declared as, UNESCO World Heritage Cities. So, you have, I mean, if I have to say, then Gujarat has been under the dynasties of, be it the Khiljis, be it the Tughlaqs, or the Gujarat Sultanate. You also had, a good amount of trade with the Portugals. There were Mughals. Everybody, there were Marathas and the Britishers. So all these dynasties had this philosophy of expanding. They wanted to expand into their territory and rule over the entire country. So in all the entire processes, irrespective of the religion, the faith, everybody has been involved in raiding and looting, isn't it? Across the nation, because they had some core value systems, and in order to fund that value system, it could be independence, it could be preaching their propaganda, it could also be amassing wealth or spreading across the nation. So they all had their own value systems, and they all indulged in actually raiding the places. So when these monuments have actually withstood all these raids, today we make a fantastic apartment, in another 10 years it withers off, the color goes off, and we start. But imagine a monument or some kind of a heritage building which has actually seen the worst of the scenarios, being raided, being ruined, and it is still standing true and tall and dignified. So that is something which we need to feel proud of. If we don't do that, then probably we might become another species like the dinosaurs. We would not have anything to speak about.
Yes.
So even though we are celebrating, UNESCO celebrates the World Heritage Day on the 18th of April, I believe it is not just one day, it should be every day that every citizen of our country should have a responsible attitude towards protecting its environment, its heritage monuments, be it tangible, be it non-tangible. I mean, some brilliant lattice work that we see in your, Sidi Saidi Mosque, isn't it? So that kind of lattice structure, which was done past some hundreds years ago, now a similar kind of lattice structure is being embedded in building of bridges, because that gives a high tensile strength to the bridges being built. Or probably a patola from your state, which the kings had actually commissioned, and it was their product. Now we find all rich people flaunting their saris. So if we don't really preserve them, we don't have anything to speak about to our forthcoming generations. So let this be a responsibility for every individual on a daily basis, and not just one day and we speak about it and the next day we forget. Because there's a famous shloka which says that Udyamaneva hi siddhyanti karyani na manorathai nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mrugaha, which means a sleeping lion would not have a deer coming into and becoming his food. It has to actually fight for that to survive. So survival of the fittest. The same thing applies to every part of our life. It also is applied to our culture, our heritage. So unless and until we don't take up that initiative and protect, as I said, we are going to become another species like the dinosaurs, which people might study about, but they would not have anything to refer to. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is what I would like to reflect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. You have explained the importance very precisely. And what can I conclude is that it is not duty of one person. It is the duty of, whole human species, as well as it is not for one day, but it is for every day that we should preserve our culture. We should preserve our heritage. Beautifully explained, ma'am. Thank you so much. Richa, ma'am, I have heard about heritage for all and affordable local heritage. Can you please throw some light on why are campaigns like Heritage for All and Affordable Local Heritage need of the hour? Yes, Richa, ma'am.
Okay. So the question is in continuation, actually. Yeah, it is actually in continuation with what Ms. Rukmini has been speaking. She's wonderfully explained and she covered a lot of points which I would completely agree. So I've had similar experiences, like when we document around the city, so people here do not know anything about the city. Like a lot of people do not really know about it. And it is really surprising and at the same time disturbing to see that how these people who know a lot about a lot of things, but they do not know about something which is right in front of their eyes, Like people pass through Siddhi Sayyadi Jali, but they don't really know what it is. And this being one of the famous spots of Ahmedabad. So imagine the flight of spots, the places that are not being talked about. So, heritage is for the people, it is by the people, and it is supposed to be everyone's legacy. So it is very much integrated into our individual lives, that fail to speak and talk about it. So that's why we need teams and we need more and more campaigns like Heritage for All. Because if something doesn't affect me or I am not really sure about something, I wouldn't be attached to it. Like if something is happening in Pune, I would really not care कि क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं. But if something is happening right in my neighborhood, because I'm familiar to it and aware about it, I'll take some measures, kind of preserve it to help some people. This is a similar story because हम लोग heritage को we do not see it as our own just because we do not know about it. So that's my point, that we need to integrate it in everybody's life, and that is going to take decades or maybe centuries for us. And for that, affordability is a very important part. Now, if I give an example of my studio, like affordable postcards. So we could, we could have we could have made products that are already there in the market that are already selling, but we choose to make affordable products just because we understand if like art, if heritage becomes limited only to the elite of the country or only to a particular class who knows about it, like archaeologists, architects, engineers. So we are ultimately limited. If we want to pass on the heritage and its values, if we want to see it preserved, it has to be everybody's collective effort. So for that, the products, the services, the knowledge and awareness has to be very much inclusive. So that's why we need heritage for all and affordable services, affordable products, and that everybody feels like he or she is a part of it, and we do not miss out on any section of the society, because ultimately we together share the responsibility, and we must all try to pass it on to future generations as it is. Like we already know that we have lost a lot of heritage just because it took us centuries to realize the importance of heritage. So right now it's time for us to, think about it and take measures so that future generation doesn't face the same thing, that we have lost a lot of things. So it's time that whatever we have right now, we preserve it and pass on to the future generation as it is.
Well said, ma'am. And I agree with you that heritage, it is for all. It is not for one person's duty. It is everyone's duty to protect our heritage.
Yeah.
Otherwise, once it is lost forever. We cannot get it back. Beautiful answer, ma'am. Thank you so much. Jitu sir, what according to you?
And one more
yes,
thing.
ma'am. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was saying, we know the end result that we want to achieve. We want to collect people for this people's movement. For that, very important factor is you have to treat it as your own. So for
Yes.
that, you really, as educators, you're doing wonderful job, and I really wish you good luck for that.
Yes, I agree. If you have the feeling of belongingness, I think then preservation will be better. So the feeling of belongingness must be there in everyone's mind. Yeah. Well said, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Jitu sir, what according to you is the role of schools with regard to heritage management in the present scenario? Jitu sir.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you again, Richa ma'am. You have spoken wonderful. Rosalind also. You have given the very relevant points. So today, I think schools have a very big role to play when we talk about heritage management, because ASI or state archaeology cannot do justice because they have limited capacity. So I think schools have a very, very big role, because if children are excited, they are sensitized about the value of heritage. I think we can keep definitely our heritage, preserved for posterity. So there are a number of ways where how schools can be involved. First of all, I think in today's situation, pandemic situation, it may not be feasible to have a heritage walk. But anyway, the things will not be there always same. Once the things will become normal, the situation becomes normal. So heritage work on different themes, like, for example, when we talk about Ahmedabad, so Ahmedabad has got wonderful water heritage monuments, like many of the talabs are there, then you have the step wells are there, and then ponds are there. So all these, the children can be taken through these walls, understand how water was stored in the medieval time, and then and why it was important for the proper management of water. So these things can be done. And secondly, there can be a lot of virtual, like considering the today's situation, there can be a lot of virtual heritage works can be conducted. And more importantly, I feel that students should also be not just go through a walk of heritage monuments, or either physical or virtual, but they should also be engaged in some ways. So one thing is that if you combine skills, the 21st century skills, with heritage and history, I think it will not only appeal to children, but it will also help them, developing so many skills and qualities. At the same time, also they will they'll develop, and they will be sensitized towards heritage. Like video making, for example. Today audio visuals play a very important role, and there are specific techniques through which you can tell a story through videos, and that is full of skills, audio visual skills, technology based skills, and that can be tried out. Schools can do that. They can be asked to make videos of of a particular monument, or monument, or intangible heritage, or a craft, or a piece of music, or traditional music, or food, or whatever, both tangible as intangible. And and that can be shared among the peer groups, and discuss further. That can be done. And secondly, I think every school should also look for, either school or the class, even particular class should actually adopt a heritage. Like not necessarily a building, it can be a old tree, it can be a water body, it can be a pretty craft street, it can be a music, or it can be anything. And try to promote, not only preserve that, but also promote within the groups and also outside. There can be competitions among classes or among schools, who are doing the best management practices, while adopting a monument, and they can be rewarded. So that can be done. And every school should have also a heritage corner, like you have a physics lab, or a mathematics lab, or a language lab even. So we don't have a history or heritage labs. So heritage lab, where children are, they are introduced to heritage. There can be photography competitions, photographs displayed. There can be models displayed. There can be different, activities, like debate competitions, or role play, or so many things can be tried out, and that can be, a year-long corner for various, and some of the best work can also be shown to this. So likewise, these are some of the aspects where schools have a very strong role to play, and make exciting activities for children, and so that they not only like, but also they develop skills, and which are necessary for today's 21st century living. And so this is how I think schools play a very important role.
Yes, rightly said, sir. Nowadays, I think schools are taking up all the projects related with heritage in a very progressive manner. But the best part, what I learned from you in today's webinar, that every school must have a heritage lab also. So this lab is actually missing in the school premises. I agree with you, sir. So in heritage, lab only, we can have many activities related with heritage. And I think the students will definitely enjoy such activities. Like you talked about adopting a monument, adopting a water body, where the children will be working for it, making videos of those, monuments, of those, water bodies. I think that will be the long lasting learning effect on the minds of the students. Very right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The webinar was really very interesting and interacting with Jitu sir, Richa ma'am, and Rosalind ma'am. And experience was really great. Thank you, dear speakers, as it is a time to end now this show. And I'm very thankful to you all for being with us. And I'm thankful to the dear audience also for being a part of the show. Thank you, the guest speakers. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.